Every year, I always seem to get a game with Jim Lee. We haven't done it this year, but I just saw him today for the first time in a long time. He was. I don't know who he was seeing, but you interested in
If you can, I am.
last time, he lives in Grosse Pointe. Last time we played at Cherry Creek, which is 23 mile and Ice. Is anybody else?
I guess it's fine.
I
guess you should be good.
You can make it be great up
That
notch.
would be, I would like to.
He says he's practicing. He's a terrible player. Third league game is just for fun.
Right.
We're ready to go?
Ways and Means Committee will come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Here.
Commissioner Mareki.
Here.
Commissioner Baydoun.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Commissioner Palomera.
Here.
Commissioner Varga.
Here.
Chairwoman, you have a quorum present. Next, item B, Chairwoman's remarks.
None right now.
Next, item C, approval of the minutes of the July 16th, 2019 meeting.
Move to approve.
It's
Support.
been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item D, unfinished business. There is none, Chairwoman. Next, item E1, under new business, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, certifying revenue in the roads fund.
Already. Let's hear from our budget folk.
Good morning, Kevin Haney, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, Budget Director. This is a budget adjustment to amend the operating budget for equipment for the roads division. The equipment was in the CIP. Usually there's a 1-year delay between the CIP and the budget, because by the time you order the equipment, you're in a different fiscal year type of thing. So this is basically just getting the budget in line with the CIP.
Any questions by members? Any questions by commissioners? Support. It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 2, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, certifying revenue and reallocating expenditures for the share of non-jail services in the general fund.
Consider it read. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sumaya Harp, Director of Administration. This is for the secondary roads grant. We received that on an annual basis. This year, we received $288,000 more, so we're certifying the revenue, correcting the budget so we can be able to spend it.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any more questions? Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 3, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, certifying revenue for Corporation Counsel in the general fund.
Consider it read. Big $6,000. It's been moved
Support.
and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 4, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriation ordinance, certifying revenue in the Community and Economic Development Fund.
Consider it read.
Support.
Question, Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask Kevin, is this, or whoever is here on this issue, is this in line with the action plan that was recently approved?
Mr. Carroll?
Anything to do with that?
Mr. Carroll's here. He can respond to that.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair Carroll, Community Development. This implements the action plan that you approved last Thursday.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'll be a no on this one. Thank you.
Alrighty. Anyone else? Commissioner Baidoon moves, supported by Commissioner Palomero to move approval. Oh, Scott did.
And I support it.
I'm sorry, Scott and Baidoon already. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
He's opposed.
Yeah,
One.
we have one. Alrighty, next item.
Next, item 5, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, reallocating expenditures in the county health fund.
Any questions by members?
Move approval.
Been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 6, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, reallocating expenditures in the county health fund.
Move approval.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 7, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, reallocating expenditures in the county health fund.
Good afternoon. I know you're itching to say something.
Kamal Keperu, Management and Budget Finance Director for the Department of Health, Human and Veteran Service. No, I'm okay.
7, right?
Okay.
I have a question.
Maybe we can make him talk out of spite.
Yeah, he sat out there. I didn't want him to think we're ignoring him or anything, you know.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Kamal, I just can't let you get away without saying something. So I did want to ask jail medical services, those funds that are being taken from that and transferred to health environmental programs. What is the medical services? I thought, is this areas that are not covered by the correct care contract?
Are you talking about item number 8?
And 7. Aren't we on 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, this is all in public health.
Oh.
What this is, we have a HUD-led grant, so maybe it's the wording, but this is definitely all in the Fund 221.
So this is transferring funds from jail medical to the HUD to pay for a deficit in the HUD-led grant.
Okay.
And no services will be impacted in jail medical, if that's the question you're asking.
Right.
Yeah, it'd be fine. It's going to be fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's been moved
Support.
and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 8, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance.
Consider it read. Discussion. Commissioner Scott moves, supported by Commissioner Palomero. All in favor, say aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 9, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriation.
Been
Support.
moved and supported. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 10, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriation ordinance, reallocating expenditures in the Central Services Fund.
Any discussion? It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 11, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
This is for the election system support?
Correct.
Okay. It's been moved.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for coming. Next item.
Next, item 12, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Any questions? It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 13, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriations ordinance.
Consider it read. Discussion? It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Next, item 14, approval of a proposed amendment to the 2018 through 2019 appropriation ordinance, certifying revenue and sources and appropriation uses in the general fund.
On this one, I would like to refer this to Cal, so that way we don't presume that everything is going to be okay, that we can talk about the policy as well as the funding. It's been moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I had said to a committee member that we would be all-inclusive, and we are. So we're sending it to Cal. Alrighty, on to our next part of our agenda, which is
On the addenda, item E15, CFO budget presentation to the committee.
Here we go, starting with the budget. Welcome, Commissioner Webb, to our committee. Is everyone else on our committee? Commissioner Dobb, thank you for coming. We're ready to go. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kevin Haney, Deputy Chief Financial Officer. I've got Matthew Dubé, who's the interim CFO. We're here to present the CEO recommended budget, the comprehensive executive budget for years 2019-20 and projected years 2020-21. I'm going to leave Matthew to have a few remarks, and then I believe that Kelly and I will go through the budget for the remainder of the discussion and answer any questions you may have,
Thank you.
truthfully if I can.
Good afternoon. Presenting the 2019-2020 CEO recommended budget. The budget is predominantly a status quo budget. There are a few one-time items being included in this year's budget. This document also includes the 2020 and 21 CEO projection. The 2020 CEO recommended budget is $1.63 billion. The general fund represents $582.6 million of that $1.63 billion. Overall, the county's budget, as I stated, was a status quo. Kevin and Kelly will present some specific one-time notable items, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that commissioners may have on the recommended budget or the projected.
Okay, as Matthew stated, the budget's $1.6 billion. General fund is $582.6 million. Of the non-general fund is $1,044 million, for the total of $1.6 billion. That's compared to $1.66 billion for the current year, $574 million for general fund, non-general fund $1,090,000. General fund, general purpose, which is the fundings that everyone in the county fights about, is going to be $413.8 million. 2021, it's projected to be $416 million. That compared to $406.9 in the current year. Non-general fund dollars, which are dollars specifically for departments that are earmarked for departments that can't be spent outside. I can't reallocate those dollars from one office or one department to another. They have to be spent within those departments. Those are $168.7 million. That, with the general fund, general purpose dollars of $413, gives me my $582 million. Mandatory spends. Oh, excuse me, I skipped a line. Transfers from the TRF. The TRF program has two different programs. The treasurer says it's one program. I call it two because it makes it easier for me to think about. There is the delinquent tax side of the program, which is surplus funds coming from penalties and interest for the DTRF programs while those properties are in foreclosure. Those properties are in delinquent. And then once they become foreclosures, those properties switch over to the forfeiture side, and those go up on auction sales that are usually in September, and the second one again in October. The combined amount in the current year budget is $17.4 million. That's what is agreed to by the treasurer, provided by the treasurer. In the current year, 2019, it's $20.7 million. Again, it's dropped by $3 million, and that's the result of the better economy. So as the economy gets better, people can pay their property taxes, and therefore the delinquent tax program goes down. So there's a yin and a yang there, if you will. In 2021, we're projecting it to drop further to 15.09. Mandatory spends. Those are dollars that I have to spend before I pay the first salary and wage. In 2020, it's $93.6 million. That includes things like rent, debt service, transfers to the mental health authority, required transfers to the mental health authority, required transfers to the park millage, things like that. That's $93.6 million and $93.8 million in 2021. That leaves $320 million that can be divvied up, allocated out to the departments. And then in 2021, it's $322 million. The budget includes a budgeted surplus of $5.7 million and $4.66 million. That's basically in case of money, in case something occurs, we have some surplus that we can draw against if we needed to. The property taxes that are being collected in 2019, we currently have $285 million in the amended budget. The budget adjustment that was sent to committee of the whole would increase that by $16 million. 2020, I have $302 million of property taxes and $307 million in 2021. Net of tax tribunals, it's $301 million and $306 respectively. The general fund is, as I mentioned, is $302.8 million. Parks millage is $10 million. Youth millage is $3.9 million, and the veterans millage is $1.5 million. Revenue sharing is decreased by the state to 52.7, oh, I'm sorry, is increased to 52.7. I got a typo in there, an increase of $2.1 million. That's based currently on the proposed budget by the state governor. If that number gets adjusted, we will have to make changes to our budget. The state budget has not been approved, and it's still in discussions regarding other areas of the budget. I think the roads funding is their biggest issue right now. It includes, let's see, where am I? Includes salary increases only for personnel that are due increases for the CBAs. They're currently in negotiations for the GBA, which is the lawyers, the GAA, which is the administrators, ASME, rank and file, which has touches a number of different areas of the county. And also my understanding is that the sheriff's Poem group agreed to a 4%, yeah, or 3%, 3% increase. That is built into the budget. Probate court had an increase for their ASME folks. That is built into the budget. No other increases are built into the budget at this time. Let's see, where am I? We are fully funding the ARC payment to Wickers at $51.4 million per the required ARC of the actuarial report. We have accelerated funding from roads of $5 million. We no longer have accelerated funding from the sewer systems, as those sewer systems have been sold off. The DC plan is now and always has been fully funded at $9.5 million. Healthcare has inflationary increases of about $4.3 million. And I'm missing my page 2, or is that page 2? No. Okay, I'm missing page 2. Other fringe inflations increases of $1.8 million.
You don't have the back.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. My apologies if you don't have the back of this. Darcel, is there? No one has the back? My apologies. We'll make sure that you get the back to that before the end of the day. We have provided funding for a one-time increase to post-Medicare retirees whose retirement payroll is less than $25,750. That is the federal poverty line, federal poverty level for a family of 4. But it's not going to be greater, as agreed to by the CEO, of more than $500,000. There's a new countywide crimes, and the budget includes a new countywide violent crimes initiative task force, which includes 10 officers, 3 prosecutors, and it's going to cost approximately $1.9 million. The CJC debt service of $14.5 million is included. The enterprise resource planning, the ERP system, has $9.4 million included in the budget. DOT has a $5 million continuation of funding for infrastructure improvements. General fund transfer to the capital fund is $5 million. That has been over a number of the last couple of years. And again, as I mentioned, the budgeted surplus of general fund general purpose is $5.7 million. There's also a restricted surplus of $400,000. That's also included in the budget. That being the highlights of the budget, if there's anything you wish to discuss specific to any departments, we can answer those questions as you pose them. And again, my apologies for missing page 2. I have an ongoing fight with our copier up on 14, and so.
What's the DC plan?
That's the Plan 4. That's the defined contribution plan.
Commissioner Palomero?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the stipend increase for under 25,750, not to exceed $500,000, what does that come to based on the numbers you have figured are going to fall in that category divided by the 500,000 divided per month?
It's, the total dollar amount's going to be about, right now, we're estimating at about $470,000, if that's what you're asking.
At how much a month per person that falls in, per retiree that falls in that category?
I believe we set that at, Mark, wasn't it $13.75? or-
$13.75.
Yeah. And I cannot stress this enough. This is a one-time payment. We cannot do this more than one time, or else there's an OPEB impact to it next year in the 2021 budget. So, and Matt, you may want to pipe in on this, but once we do it more than once, then the auditors, the outside auditors, consider this an OPEB liability.
Actuaries.
Yeah, the actuarial. Yeah.
Mr. Abel, would you chime in for a minute? Did you want to? And then
I can go
I'll
after
take-
the other commissioners have asked their questions, but I do have some issues I'd like to discuss with Kevin.
Okay. Commissioner Webb?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want a point of a clarification on that last thing. So this $13.75 a month per retiree to the stipend, this is what you're saying is this is just for this 1 year. After that, they go back to their regular amount. They lose this $13.75. It's not in perpetuity.
That is correct.
So it's
That is what-
1 year interest, a 1 year increase.
That is what was agreed to by the CEO.
Okay, and then the other question that I have is the CJC debt service, 14.5 million. Those are that's then the new bonds.
Yes, that's the debt service on the 2018 A's.
Okay, and then what is the debt we're paying on the old bonds?
The old bonds, the net debt service, I believe, is around $14 million as well. 14 and change. That's net of the subsidy. There's an IRS subsidy that we get, about $8 million, $8 million and change.
So the 14 million is on top of that, that's not included in the 14 million.
No, it's two separate numbers.
Okay. So the 14, so it's about 28.5 million we're paying a debt service between the old jail and the new jail.
That's correct. In 2024, I believe it'll go up an additional $4.5 million for principal.
In
We're only
2000 what?
24.
In 2024, you project it'll go up plus 4. That's when it's opening, right, and operational? Or
Yeah, the idea was, the way the amortization was designed was that we waited till the building was open before we'd start paying principal on it. We're now just paying interest.
Okay, so it'll include, I remember that conversation now. Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to get the numbers straight. Thank you.
Commissioner Baker McCormick?
Thank you. So the question about that I have is about the retirees, family of 4. Is it a reason why we based it on a family of 4 rather than maybe a family of 2? Because most retirees don't have dependents. So I'm just...
Commissioner, if I may, so the idea was if we lowered the number of dependents lower, then fewer people would be eligible for it. So the idea is to come up with a, lack of a better word, a target population that would be able to be receiving these fundings, this fund. If we went down to the poverty level for a single person is somewhere around $10,000, and it goes up to $12,000 and change, but for a 2-person, and then goes up by that another $5,000 or so for a family of 3, and then $25,000. It ends up being $25,000 for a family of 4. It was just meant to hit a target population.
Okay, so could we just... I guess I'm just wondering where the $25,000. I get you're getting it from the I guess, federal poverty number. But my concern is that most retirees they're not going to fall into this number. But you said you did have a number of retirees that you think might qualify?
Yes, I think and again, I should have looked this up. I actually forgot about this in the budget. It's been a while since I went back and looked at it. I think it's going to be around somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 retirees. Might be a little bit more. Mark, do you remember the number, what that number
I
was?
think that the number's probably above 2,500.
Was it 2,500? Yeah.
Commissioner Palomero on that
Yeah,
point.
to that point, Commissioner, it's not only family of four under poverty level. That he's just stating a number. We identified a income level that your pension is X or less. Last year, before it was vetoed, it was $28,000 a year, and it was vetoed because of the OPEB concern of raising our borrowing costs. So this year, it's the number that's been agreed to, thankfully, by the CEO, is $25,750. It just equates to, doesn't have to be a family of four, it can be a single person.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just not for families of four.
Okay, that's what I was trying to.
Okay, I thought that's where you were going, and,
Most seniors don't have a family of four.
right. So it's, if your pension is $25,750 or less, you're going to get an additional $13.75 a month for your health.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For 1 year.
For
For
1
1 year.
Yes.
And just
seems so real.
yeah.
1 year. Maybe 2 years.
One other question.
One at a time. Take it.
Can you tell me how we determine, I was looking at the CIP report, how we determine the engineering number for the roads, the amount, how much each district gets for, or how it's divided?
The CIP for roads is actually done on a formulary basis, I believe, and it's the communities that make up, I think it's SEMCOG that come up with, and maybe some of the commissioners would probably know this better than I do. They look at the roads and which roads are worse to where, and that's what they target. It's not, they don't look at so much the commission districts in the sense that, this commissioner will get this. It's not like the parks money.
Right.
This is just, they're actually looking at the various projects.
Okay, so there's no formula to how the county selects the roads?
Yes.
Yeah, there probably is.
I can tell you.
DPS will be here. I'm not even sure when. Terrence, do you know when DPS is going to be here? Probably in 3 or 4 meetings.
Through the chair on Tuesday, August 6th. in Dearborn.
That's a perfect question to be asking them.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I have a couple of roads and they haven't been, so, okay, thank you. Thank you.
As you get your questions for different departments or whatever, just jot it down, and
Right.
Okay.
we can even ask ahead of time for the process to be put in writing if you so choose.
Great.
So just
Can
let
we
staff
ask for that
know.
now, or you want me to wait till later?
We can ask for that process
Yeah.
ahead of
The
time.
federal aid committee
So they're
process?
prepared when they come here on
Answer
that
the
day.
question. Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
so-
But then they have a study, there's a group that is studying the roads, right?
Yep,
Yes.
Yeah. And that will make the determinations.
they already did that.
It's a little more complicated than that, so I could probably say you probably need to look at SEMCOG's 5-year plan, and then it goes according to the worst roads first. They tried to put a Band-Aid on what they can, and so it's more complicated than just, I don't want to give it to this district, and I want to give it to that district, so. It's a little more complicated than
And
that.
the study you're
There's
talking.
checks and
yeah.
balances.
The study you're talking about, Commissioner, I believe that was really just a global study to see, and the other counties have done it, something similar, to see how much the total cost is to fix the roads to make them decent.
that wasn't
And it was like
determined
$2 billion or
that-
$3 billion. or,
Billion for the next
you
10
know,
years.
So it's not something I can put in the budget real easy without laying everybody off.
Yeah, and that's why I just wanted a clarification of the process.
But
That's all.
that,
Yeah.
but the.
We'll get that information.
Yeah,
from
the DPS will be able to get that for you, and along with any other, if you have any other departmental level questions, some of them I can answer, but for the most part, the experts will be at the department level.
Terrence is sending that out to them, so we'll have that in writing. We have a list. Are you
I'm
done?
done. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Marecki,
Thank you.
Anderson, Palomera, Baydoun, Scott, and Webb. You're done? Okay. In that order.
Thank you. Kevin, we don't have the back of this sheet, so I don't know if it shows where that $477,000 is coming out of. Is that general fund or?
It's coming out of the health fund. It's where it should have come out last year. The health, not the public health fund, but the employee health fund. And so it's being allocated countywide to all departments that have bodies that receive health care equally. Does that make sense? So a portion of it, 53% of it's coming out of general fund.
Okay.
And then the rest, 52%, somewhere around there, and the rest is coming out of non-general fund operations.
Okay. And what is going to, that's just extra money that we have laying around?
I had to increase the appropriation for that. If the will of the body to decrease that, then basically what I do is just do a budget adjustment moving into the health fund, or into the Blue Cross line, if you will. I never have enough money in that line. So,
Okay. I mean, I've been very verbal how against this I am, but.
yeah.
The second question I have is about, and I don't see it, so this is off the top of my head, this crime.
Yes, the crime initiative.
And is, well, that's under the sheriff, right?
It's right now currently housed in community corrections. It's in the community corrections fund, which falls under the CEO. It's a joint effort between the CEO, the sheriff, the prosecutor's office, City of Detroit, and other. It's going to be expanded to other municipalities as well.
It will be.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be countywide, is what my understanding is.
Okay, and I know we're going to be hearing from the sheriff, but
Right.
just to know, I mean, sometimes people are told they need to do these things and they're not really on board, and is this all, everybody's all excited about this?
The sheriff's on board.
Well, I don't know the
I
level
did-
of excitement.
I spoke to the sheriff and prosecutor, they're all on board with
Because
this.
there's nothing worse than mandating, and we see this at the state all the time, them mandating things and people really don't want to do them, so I'm sure I'll be making my little phone calls too.
Yeah, so what this initiative is, there's a number of warrants there's not enough manpower to go out and chase down these guys and gals, I guess, these people. So what this group is doing is focusing on that type of operation.
Okay, and we talked about that at was it Ways and Means last 2 weeks
No,
ago?
we were talking about it afterwards, I think.
Oh, afterwards, okay. So that will go to other areas too, because everybody's having problems with the warrant
Right,
stuff.
right. So I did ask the question. Brendan Barber, Commander Brendan Barber, is the one that's running the operation. And I asked him, I said, well, you're just not doing City of Detroit guys, right? He goes, no, actually what happens is a lot of times that you'll have a suburban guy, if you will, goes into the city and does the crime there and comes back, and they'll be chasing the guy back to Livonia or Redford or wherever the heck he is. But the beauty of this is because they're sheriff officers, they can cross jurisdiction lines. So that's the other thing.
Do you know what the pay is going to be? Do they think they're going to be able to get 12 sheriffs, 11 sheriffs?
There's 10 officers, including command. There's right now 3 prosecuting attorneys built into the budget. I'm told that might be expanded to 6. But right now, there's only 3 built into the budget.
Do you know what the pay is going to be for the?
We budgeted corporals, figuring that these are fresh air outside jobs, and those are higher level officers, so we have enough, if it ends up being a lower level officer, we'll have enough budget for it. But we budgeted corporals for these jobs. Corporals, I think there's one sergeant and there's commander.
So do you know the wage at all? It's more than the jail, I assume.
Yeah, it's going to be more than the jail. I think the current rate for a corporal is right around 58,000, 59,000, somewhere around there.
All right. Well, we'll hear more about it when
Right.
it comes in front of us. Thank you.
And it will probably be more than just a 9 to 5 kind of thing. They're going to probably do it whenever they need to do it, so.
And it's falling right now in community corrections, which falls under the CEO, and it's part of HHVS. The player to be named later, I guess.
This week.
So thank you. Thank you. I wanted to say that, but I couldn't say that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Along the same lines of Commissioner Marecki's question on the task force, can we get something with more specificity of what that program is going to be by the time we get to that budget, so we can have a better understanding? I mean, it's a value certainly if it's going countywide, and everyone has issues that they need dealt with, and so that's important to me. I mean, I was originally very suspect of it, but I'm warming up to it a little bit. But I'd like to see some details.
That's fine. I've already alerted Brandon that he'll have to be here. He's going to be here with whatever these guys are called nowadays, HHVS, when they come in, and he'll be able to talk to you more about that. But I will. You know what I'll do is I'll have him call you. Would that work for you?
Well, I think probably everybody would like the same information.
Okay.
And if you'd have it even a handout at the time of the budget that they're coming in. That's all. Thank you.
Kevin, they haven't unveiled this yet, right?
The
executive was supposed to unveil this with everyone present.
Yeah, I don't.
They're gonna be-
I don't know that he's done that. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Before we vote on it?
Right?
Sometime down the road, but Commissioner Baydoun?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going back to the amount, Kevin, that you talked about for the retirees of $25,750, this is the threshold, versus $28,000 that was proposed last year and wasn't agreed upon. Do we know, what the difference between those two amounts? How many retirees are we talking about between 28,000 income bracket and 25,750? Are we talking 400, 500, 600 retirees?
I would have to go back and look.
And how much is the dollar amount if you were to equate between giving 13.75? I think they were asking for 15 last year, $15, right?
Kevin, if I could answer this one for you. Last year when we were talking about 28,000 as the threshold, that covered approximately just under 75% of all the retirees that were getting the stipend. So by decreasing it to 25,000, actually the number is decreased of those that are in total because it was a finite number to begin with. But if we decrease it to 25,000, that should increase it to beyond 75%. So it's a good portion of them that are getting it. And the philosophy was we want to help those that are in most need. And there are a lot of people getting pensions that are significant pensions. So if you ever looked at the list, I think that you would end up very comfortable with that $25,000 number.
Is it fair to assume also that they have signed on to this proposed amount? I'm talking about the retirees.
I met with the retirees, and they are thankful that we are getting this. I'm telling you, that's the word that they used, thankful for getting this. So I'm comfortable.
And I'm just curious also, going back, I asked this last year because I wasn't on board, and I was told that it would affect our bond rating. So where is this money coming in from the budget that it's not going to affect our bond rating in the future.
This money is coming from, it's an allocation that goes out to all departments that have employees that have health care. So it's being spread countywide, of which that about 52 to 53% of that hits the general fund. So,
and Kevin, if I could address that question also, Commissioner, it's not necessarily the money that affects the thoughts of those that rate our bonds. It's philosophical. It's philosophical because if you read some of their writings in the last several years, they've seen a lot of discipline regarding fiscal issues, and their commentary is that they want to see that discipline continue. So that's why it's real important, whether it affects the OPEB liability, because if it goes into a second year, the OPEB liability would increase by somewhere between, approximately $4 or $5 million. So it's really an issue of fiscal discipline more so than the monetary amount.
So this is just a one-time bonus, if you will, for the whole year for these retirees, and they'll probably come back the following year and ask for additional money.
They probably will.
Yeah.
I mean, no question about it. They would like to see this as we would to continue, and if we find a different way where we can make it continue, we're going to look for that. And I said that much to the executive when the chairwoman and I met with him, is that we're going to try to find a creative way if there is one. I'm not sure if there will be one, but we are committed to this program, and this is a good start, and we'll work from here and see how far we get. Our intent is good, and so if we can do it, I know it's going to give heartburn to some people, but that really is the intent. But this is, just know it's a one-time. We're not promising more than we can deliver, but we can deliver this year, and we are going to. Go ahead.
I wanted to touch base on the point of the ratings agency. I actually presented with the team. Actually presented to Moody's this morning for our annual review of our county credit, and one of the key points that they reiterate during our presentation was discipline. They look at how we spend our money, not just on where we're spending it, but what we're incurring in future liabilities. And so that's why the one time is really a key to this. If it's a one-time expenditure, it's one time. If we're doing it more than once, it now becomes a part of the plan. Therefore, we have to price that out for the future life of all retirees that are going to get this. We have to pick up that liability in the now, and we have to show that now. That is us moving backwards in terms of increasing county long-term liabilities, especially in the OPEB area, because that is a closed plan. This would essentially be almost like reopening the plan, in a sense. That is something that any movement towards that, they're going to start looking at that in a potentially negative manner to our credit rating. If we were to reopen the plan to active employees today, giving them stipends or some other form of retirement health care coverage, our liability would increase dramatically in one fell swoop. We cut over $1 billion of liability making these cuts. If we move backwards on those cuts, that liability comes back.
That's why we need to reiterate this year that it's a one-time. What happens in the future is in the future. But now the intent is for this year. This is this year's budget, and we're going to put it in this year. So if we keep it on that, if we keep it that way, we are in no danger of violating those kinds of discussions.
I'm sure I'll have the argument with the auditors and with the actuary, but I feel that we're on very good ground, that we're not moving backwards on plan structure in any way, shape, or form by this being a one-time item.
Thank you. So I would hope that we would not do this as a negative when it comes to the budget as to the reason why one may not vote for it because it's a one-time kind of thing. So everyone understands where we're at on this, and we definitely do not want to jeopardize any other funding or any other bond rating that we might be going out for bonding by saying things other than what the fact is we're doing this year. Commissioner Webb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I get the one-year thing. That makes sense because we can address it every year when it comes up.
No, you're missing the point.
But
This is a one-time deal. If you address it next year and decide to put it in the budget, then his external auditors and actuarials are going to put it in the OPEB liability. I can't stress this enough.
Okay.
This is a one-time deal.
Oh, I see. Okay, so then
Can't
that's
talk about
totally
next
different.
year, this year.
Okay. Okay, well, it sounds like they just put the kibosh on next year. So we have a $10.6 million increase in general fund revenues, and we're allocating $500,000 of it for the retiree health care. We just got in audit, we just got a overview on the on Wickers and the retirement pension fund and that type of thing. And a lot of the retirees, since this has been grandfathered and it's, just a certain amount of people, they're dying off. So I don't know if that's factored in to that. I don't know if there's been math done to show, how this would impact our OPEB liability and that type of thing. But if there has been, I'd really like to see it. The other thing I would ask for is under mandatory spend on the front page, you have $98.1 million from last year, $93.6 million. Okay, so it's interesting to me that that's down. The mandatory spend is down.
Some debt service fell off.
That's what it is. Some debt service fell off. Is there any way? Is that in here? The breakdown of the mandatory costs on, because I only got through the executive summary. I haven't had a chance to go through this entire document.
No, that's just a number I calculate. I can provide that to the committee if that's their wish.
Well, I'd just like to see what the mandatory spend breakdown is on mental health, park funding, and debt service, if possible. If it's not in here, it'd be good for us to know what the breakdown is, and what specifically fell off in way of debt service to reduce the mandatory spend by nearly $5 million. That's significant. And then how we reallocated the $5 million that we don't have to spend on mandatory things.
That would have gone to the sheriff, the prosecutor, the CEO departments, the treasurer, clerk's office. It just gets reallocated out the budget.
Spread out. So
Yeah.
we'll be able to see that. Will we be able to see that when we read this budget?
When you go department to department, you'll see the
Increases?
You'll see the increases of general fund, general purpose, which is usually the bottom line of if you go to what we call the square page, which is the department summary,
Okay. Good.
you should see it.
All right, I'll look for it. If I don't find it, I'll call you. The only comment I just want to throw out in way overarching, just because my friend here, Monique, mentioned, is this a place to, and it may have to be something that we bring up when the veterans folks are here, but you and I have spoke about it. I'd really like to see one more person dedicated, and I think our Veterans Department is significantly underfunded, and it's made national TV for being underfunded, and they're planning on doing a follow-up to that show and do national coverage of it again, how underfunded we are in our Veterans Department. So I would really like to see at least one rover, one person that has a satellite office in every part, east side, downriver, and western Wayne, one day a week, so that our veterans have access to our veteran services without coming downtown, paying to park, walking 3 blocks when they got transportation and physical disability issues.
We'll be talking when they come in front of us, then we will talk about that at that time.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That's all I have right now.
To that point,
Yes.
The director said he will be investigating to see what the needs are.
Right.
You were not at the meeting, but I asked your question.
Thank you for me. I appreciate you. Yeah.
Commissioner Martha Scott is on it.
I'm glad. Well, I've been talking to her about it.
She has a committee, subcommittee, or a task force that's
I
dealing
know.
with that.
I know. I know.
I know when she gets on the job, she's on it. And then we're going to discuss it in
Well, he needs the resources because without it, he can't do whatever he wants to do. So that's why we've had 4 of them in 4 years.
any other members? Any other? Would you like to make a comment?
Well,
Mr.
I
Evans?
just have a couple philosophical questions, things that I noticed in the presentations, Kevin and Matthew. You talked about the delinquent tax revolving fund, and I'm looking at page 35 of your book, and I noticed that the delinquent tax revolving fund, the fund balance is going up. So is that a philosophical shift in what we're doing with the money? I mean, are we increasing that fund balance for a reason?
The treasurer over the last 3 years, the treasurer has increased the amount that he's keeping on hand to run the DTRF program. I believe it's about $1 million or so. I think we're at about
20 million.
Yeah, that's,
We were at 25 million back in 2014, I think, is what he had on hand as unrestricted reserved. And last year, I believe it was 27. So over the last 5 years, I think it's gone up $1.5 million, $2 million. These are the numbers off right off the top of my head. Are you talking about the entire fund balance?
Entire fund balance.
There's also $82 million in that's restricted for bond service.
Oh, so this is just the unrestricted piece?
So the unrestricted piece is what the treasurer keeps on hand to actually run the program year to year.
All right.
His expenditures, if you look at the 2018 CAFR, I believe it's page 50. His operational costs were $23 or $24 million, but he used up about $27 million worth of cash. Timing differences between accruals. So he's keeping about 1 year's worth of resources to run the program, and so he's not using program income to run the program, he's using fund balance to run the program.
Okay. Because I do notice a reduction in the county road fund as well of approximately $20 million each year, so I'm assuming that we're overspending the resources that we have there, and the fund balance is dropping.
yeah, those are budgeted changes that the roads fund is recommending for the bridges and the other emergency.
Okay. And on a going forward basis, I know that the funding that we've done for the pension plan has been admirable. I'm noticing that we're putting another $5 million in there. Is that going to continue? Because at this point in time, based on the economy, I mean, the ARC has been the most stable funding for the pension plan for the last 20 years. Are we continuing to want to overfund that?
Right now, the market's doing fairly well, and so that extra $5 million is hopefully going to return some good gains. If we end up in a recession, then it becomes more important to overfund.
No, I
because then we'll hopefully catch the bottom of the market. So at this point, over the next couple of years, I think the plan should be to continue the $5 million. There's no way to predict when the recession will start. It could be tomorrow. It could be 2 years from now. Having it in the budget, it's there. Essentially, we're using money that roads has not been able to spend historically, while we were accruing pension costs for the folks that worked over there. And so this is kind of a way to capture some of that.
And then the last question that I have, Matthew, is we are going to be refinancing some of the debt that we have. I know that some of it is callable.
So all I'm waiting on is for commission approval of a contract with Acacia, which is the new financial advisory firm for the county. Once we have that contract, their first job assignment is going to be to review all of the county's debts for the next 2 years of callable and to start putting together a refunding plan. I'm going to sit down with them. Judge Kaufman wants to be involved in the discussion. We want to set very clear criteria, but we also want a menu approach. We want to have lots of different options and kind of go through those within certain criteria. One is we want to keep close to level debt service as we can. We don't want big spikes and big troughs in our debt service year over year. Create some very significant strains on budgeting when you have to take an extra $20 million out of general fund, general purpose for 1 year of debt service, and then next year you get it back. Well, are you going to fire $20 million worth of people for a year? That doesn't make any sense. So level debt service is one criteria. We want to keep it as flat as we can so that we don't have dips and dives in budgeting. We want to make sure that we capture as much of the savings as we can. Oftentimes, you can save more by having balloon payments. Well, we're not going to do that so that we don't have these spikes and troughs in debt service. So there's going to be a number of criteria they're going to work with and see where we can come up with a plan of issuances over the next probably 18 to 24 months to try and capture the savings of callable bonds that have higher interest rates. The other nice thing is it looks like there's a downward pressure on interest rates right now, probably over the next 6 months. So we're not likely to lose out much on savings. If it takes us an extra couple days to get this done, we're still seemingly kind of in the bottom of the trough on interest rates. But we also don't want to wait too long because obviously at some point we're going to see probably a shift.
Oh, good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Markey?
Thank you. Matthew, could you back up a bit when you talked about the $5 million that DPS could not use for roads? What did that mean?
I
was going to ask the same question. I saw her face.
If we look at the county's finances for the last 5 years, DPS Roads has a number of projects every year, and they're not always able to complete all of them. And essentially, money that is budgeted for roads projects that we can't spend in a given year essentially fall to fund balance. So if the state of Michigan gives us $100 million for roads, and we budget $100 million for roads expense, and one of the projects can't be completed. We can't find a contractor to do the work, or the engineering of the project takes longer than we anticipated, and we can't start the actual building as quickly, or whatever may happen, and that project doesn't get as far as we thought it would when we originally budgeted. So let's say we spend $90 million during the year. There's $10 million of funds to run roads fund balance in that year. And so that is money that we had allocated for roads expense in prior years that was just not spent. That's where the roads fund balance comes from. That roads fund balance, a portion of that is attributable to pensions. We make our ARC payment, a portion of our ARC payment comes out of the roads fund, just like it comes out of every department and elected official's office in the county. What we have is we have an unfunded liability within the pension system. That is essentially pension expense that we have not paid for when it occurred. So instead of paying 100% in years past, some portion of it was deferred. That's what the unfunded portion is. That unfunded portion is what I'm talking about. We're funding some of that unfunded portion that is related to the roads folks out of roads money because they have this fund balance that we can utilize for some of the pension funding.
Okay, so do you know, like historically, since you've been here, how much of that fund balance is going toward the ARC payment that's coming out of DPS? I mean,
the exact amount of ARC payment is directly related to their payroll. So it's approximately, it's in the ballpark of 50%. So for every dollar of wages we pay out, about 50 cents goes to pay the ARC for the county. It's in that ballpark. So this is essentially saying, well, that 50 cents that we should have paid back in 1962 that we didn't pay, it's now part of that fund balance. And so now we're taking out a fund balance and moving it into the pension system.
okay, and I get that, but it just seems like for us to ever like lose a project because something didn't go right or it didn't get done and then it goes into that balance. Shouldn't we be looking at, am I just not?
No, actually I agree with you. I agree with you because if you look, 3, 4, 5 years ago, our unfunded liability was significant. We are now at 62%. The amortization is stabilized with Wickers. We've got our liquidity has improved dramatically. The economy has improved dramatically. The remaining amortization on the pension fund is significantly below what it was. And the most stable funding that Wickers has is the ARC for the last 20 years, even beyond what they've been earning in the market. So I think that the county has more significant needs now than payment of that pension plan, which was different several years ago. I would have argued otherwise, but now I would advise that we hold off on payments for at least 5 years, wait and see where we go, and then continue that while we deal with the other issues that the county has, which is deferred maintenance, employment-related issues, employee retention. All of those issues, I think, are more significant now than the ARC.
But none of that 5 million can be used for any of those things. Because it's only Act 51 money.
I'm not going to argue about road money, Matthew, but I will argue if money is ever taken out of our general fund or other unassigned or unrestricted monies, because I think that we have greater uses for it at this point than funding the pension plan.
And I think that's a policy decision that
I
the
agree.
commission and the CEO will have to have discussions on. Right now, we have $5 million coming from roads going into the Wickers funding. Everything else is just based on the ARC payment, or whatever it's called now. So at the end of the day, included in the budget is the $5 million for Wickers.
Okay, and I guess we need to have some discussions about this, because as a commissioner of the 9th District, my life is all road stuff. And if we're like giving up projects.
No
because
projects
of-
are being given up. They're not even being deferred. What's happening is they may be coming in under budget. They may not. It may be a timing issue. Things like that. The CEO, the office.
Under budget would be great. I mean,
The office of the CEO has established for the roads fund this policy of putting $5 million into Wickers. It's a good thing. If you think about it, it's a good thing. Instead of being 61.7, we go to 62.1. Okay?
no, I totally get that. I mean,
So
you're saying to me, if you didn't have that money, you wouldn't have anything else.
And Commissioner, if I might add, in the roads fund, they are taking and just spending out of fund balance an additional $20 million this year
Yeah.
and next year. So next year is another $21 million. So the fund balance of the road fund is dropping because we are spending greater than we are receiving. So as long as we continue to do that, I mean, the reality is that the roads fund has a $3 billion liability, which is, the cost of the infrastructure. We're not going to get it with the money that we have. It's going to have to come from the state of Michigan.
Yep.
I don't know how, I don't disagree that the $5 million isn't going to be impactful as long as we deal with the issues that are before us with the roads.
And it's great. I mean, I think when I started here, it was funded at 45%.
Correct.
Now we're up to 62.
Right.
So that's great. I just don't want, the whole Michigan, it's all about roads right now. It's just road. That's all my phone calls.
$5 million will get you a half mile of pavement.
Right.
One lane.
Well,
One lane. So-
okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I would take it in my district.
I think it'd go a lot longer than that. But
you're right, sure. But I don't argue with what they're doing with it as a result of it not being spent. I mean, putting it in the pension system is always good. Those people are getting pensions, and to Matt's point, they have to be funded when they collect it, so it's coming from their department just like it does for everybody else. So I get all that, and I'm okay with that. My issue is that we're 123 people short in DPS because they're not funded appropriately, and they're not paid comparably, and we can't hire and retain employees. And we have this issue everywhere. But when Mark mentioned that where the ARC is right now and where roads are right now, if you threw $5 million on this table for roads, and you would see 15 commissioners just pouncing it because it is the number one thing that we get called on. So now I know in all my time in COPS and chairing it in all the federal aid committee meetings that I've been to, there's a million different reasons why they lose the funding. Sometimes there's match grants from the state that come late. Sometimes it's bureaucratic stuff that's outside of our control. But the fact that we are so short-staffed in that department, if you have, just like veterans, you can have the money, but if you don't have the people, you can't spend the money, right? So you're not getting the job done. So I do think that this commission should take, from an operation management service delivery standpoint, take a closer look at that funding, or that road funding. I'm not saying that their idea what to do with it if we're not spending it on roads is a bad one. I'm just saying that And when you made the point to Mark said we could be spending it on employees and stuff, and you said it can't be spent for that because it's Public Act 51 money. Isn't Public Act 51 money used to pay employees in the roads department?
Solely in the roads department.
Right, but that's fine, but
So
that's what we
it's not
need.
5 million countywide. This doesn't
Right.
help underfunded sheriffs or
Right.
underfunded anybody else.
Yeah, I think he knew that when he made the comment. I mean, I think Mark knew that when he made the comment, but you need the employees in that department to be able to spend the money to fix the roads that we have. So if you spent some of the surplus money on employees right in that department, you would actually be able to spend more of the money on roads because you'd have the bodies to do the roads, even if it was just on the maintenance side of the house.
We're going to delve into that when we come to roads.
To public services, yeah,
But right now.
putting it out there.
Because we have Marcy yet to go. Commissioner Baker McCormick,
I'll wait.
okay, and
Here,
Commissioner
Brad.
Anderson.
Real quick, I'd just like to say that I too would rather see the money used, that extra, rather than putting it in to the ARC above and beyond what our minimum payment is, especially when our need is so high for our roads. But I also wanted to ask Kevin, rainy day fund, I know there's a different, that's one term, but are we putting any money in that this year?
No, we're keeping it stable at $23 million.
And what is the recommended amount by our auditors?
They have no recommendation specifically for the rainy day fund. GFOA talks about somewhere between 15 and 20% for the general fund. From a CAFR standpoint, the rainy day general fund, they don't what?
No, it's not 15% from the GFOA.
What is it?
The GFOA has a bare minimum 15%
Yeah.
is you're essentially like in a deficit if you're below 15%.
Yeah, right.
Your general fund balance needs to be adequate for your governmental situation. And so part of the determination of a fund balance is it's not a specific percentage.
So we have more than 15%.
Where do you feel we should be?
Plant Moran actually just did a multi-county, multi-jurisdiction analysis of fund balance. And now this is not a specific recommendation to Wayne County, but their general recommendation is for September year-end counties like Wayne County. They're saying that 40 to 50% fund balance is a reasonable level of funding. Wow. Because when we finish the year in September, we've just collected more than a third of our revenue in that month. And so the problem isn't fund balance in September. The problem is how much cash do we have on hand, the resources that we have on hand during the leanest months of the year, right? It's like somebody who gets a paycheck once a month. If you say, well, I'm going to look at your checking account the day after you get your monthly check, you're flush, you're fine. That's not the problem. The problem is, what does your bank account look like 2 days before you get your next check? And so for the county, May, June, July are our leanest months of the year. The July taxes go on the rolls. We start collecting, not really much in July, but we start really collecting in August. And then most of the money comes in September, October, November. And so that's where at fiscal year end, we have a nice fund balance, but that's because we're also including almost $100 million of the property taxes that we're capturing right year end. If you looked at if we were a July year end, that number would be very, very different.
One last question, back to roads. What are we projecting for the end of this budget year to have on hand in the road fund?
Actually, we are projecting it. It's in the book. Projected to, now this is total fund balance. Okay, not necessarily restricted, well, it's all restricted, but we're looking at right now $108.4 million. And then in the 2020 budget, we're projecting to spend $20.1 million of that, bringing it down to $88 million. And then another $21 million in 2021, bringing it down to $67 million. And that includes, just so you're aware, there's a number of pieces within the roads budget, because there's, lack of a better word, allocated dollars for projects that are currently ongoing. So as Matthew alluded to, you have a project that's worth $10 million, starts in June, finishes in December or somewhere along that. So at year end, that $500,000 or that's not been spent on that project is going to go to fund balance, and the roads division will burn that out of fund balance as opposed to using new monies. So, and then there's also, a lot of it is timing. And what will happen is, in fact, through this committee, what happens is that you will see, and Parks is the same way, halfway through the year, or say November-ish, December-ish, somewhere around there, we get a budget adjustment from Roads and Parks saying we need to certify fund balance because of all these roads that are all these projects that are sitting in fund balance that are now coming to fruition.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, one quick
one. $500,000 in parentheses under the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund. Do you know what
Yes.
that is? The change from, and the page you just left.
Yeah.
2009, yeah.
So the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund, I think the revenue generated from Soldiers and Sailors Relief is about $1.3 million. What we have done and what we do historically is we budgeted an additional $500,000. That $500,000 pays for other items that the millage does not pay for. And what will happen, and my best example is that the county is required to pay through the general fund $300 for a burial, and I think another $50 for a headstone for eligible veterans. This commission has historically requested, and we built into the budget, an additional $700 per burial, and that's coming out of the Veterans Fund, and that's one of the biggest chunks that's being paid for out of that Veterans Funds. We have, this is morbid to say, we budget around 300 burials a year.
Well, you dropped from 1.8 million to 1.3 million in the projections.
Correct.
There's less and less people in the pool.
And hopefully, and as you alluded to, Commissioner, we've had some turnover. We had some turnover in the management ranks of the Veterans Fund, and hopefully, we just hired a new director of veterans, and hopefully he'll be one to help stabilize that unit.
If you fund them, you will. It's the fourth one.
I have funded him, Commissioner.
We have to fund him better.
I'm giving him an extra $500,000.
Okay, we are now moving on. Pardon me? Oh.
Spend that on personnel.
Commissioner Dobb, did you? Okay. Any questions before we move to the Auditor General? Okay. Thank you for coming today and making your presentation, and we'll see you at the next meeting.
Page 2. Page 2 of that handout.
Oh, electronically, we're going to be getting page 2.
I will send all of you the.
Page
I'll send
1 and
everyone page 1 and 2 again electronically.
Okay,
Like
thank
I
you.
said, I'm having a fight with this copier up on 14, and it's just 1 this time.
Okay, thank you.
I know, I'll fix that too.
Or you don't
Welcome our
It was
Auditor
51 when
General
we did it. They changed it.
to make the budget sensitive report.
It's like hotter.
I don't care.
I'm fine.
You can open it. Brought my sweater and I didn't need it, which is great.
What was the other thing you were saying?
Okay,
We need to fix that. I thought that was 1.7.
It was just me. Could have been, you know.
Marcy Cora, Auditor General. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you again this year to present our budget-sensitive and fiscal year 2018 CAFR review report to the Commission for its fiscal year 2020 budget deliberations. This report is based on budgetary issues that have come to our attention during our audits, consulting, and other engagements, as well as part of our CAFR review. We think it'll be useful during your budget deliberations, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike, who'll get started. And just a quick note, though, we are going to be making almost the same presentation tomorrow to the audit committee. Tomorrow's will be a little bit more in depth because we have more time with that. So if anybody that has additional questions, you're welcome to attend audit committee tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Cisnowski, Audit Manager.
Audit committee, they won't let me
I'm
come.
going to skip this one.
Yeah, you do, don't you?
The quorum, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Getting to slide number 3, this is the first budgetary issue for fiscal year 2019-2020. Fund deficits, pages 2 and 3 of the report. The undesignated fund deficits have decreased from $27.1 million in fiscal year 2016 to $22.9 million in fiscal year 2018. This is a decrease of approximately $4.2 million or 15.5% over this 3-year fiscal period. We recommend that the Commission should request the Administration to provide frequent updates on eliminating remaining fund deficits, including the Economic Development Corporation Fund, Environment, and Buildings and Grounds Maintenance.
Thank you.
Management's response is on page 3.
Page 3 of this.
On page 3 of the report, I should point that out. Thank you. Next item is revenue enhancements, user fees on page 6 of the report itself. In fiscal year 2018, charges for services was about $137 million, or 23.7% of the total county general fund revenue. This is a $4.9 million increase from the prior fiscal year. In fiscal year 2018, the Commission did not take any actions regarding the review of the county's fee ordinance. Although in prior years, the Budget Task Force recommended that to adjust fees for county services annually to reflect market charges, changes in the rates charged for comparable services in peer counties.
If I could make a comment regarding this one. I think this is important that we at least go and look at some of our fees on an annual basis, especially ones that have to do with services, to ensure that we are recouping what it's costing us for those services. I know we did an audit report, it's probably several years ago, on food inspection fees, and we found at that time we hadn't increased our fees in 10 years. So then we went and looked at increasing the fees. The county commission approved the increase of fees. It was a significant increase for the restaurant owners. So if they give gradual increases, it's not as a hard of hit for them.
Next item is overtime. On page 7 of the report.
I think, excuse me, sure, we can ask questions as we go through if we keep it very short, and then we can discuss the more detail at the end.
Okay.
Commissioner Anderson?
Just really quick, Marcy, of those fee increases, the ones, has the Auditor General, have you looked at the ones that are probably the most out of line at this point, that should be, that would also, I would say, help the county as far as those fees being adjusted?
Kevin can help me, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Management and Budget has done a study on charges and fees and services. I'm not sure how long ago
We
it
did.
was.
The biggest chunk of the charges, fees, and fines, if you will, and there's a big chunk that's chargebacks, and we fix those every year to the chagrin of Madam Prosecutor and other elected officials. But the other big chunk of fees that could impact revenues is coming out of public health. We did one back in 2013, 2004, maybe 12. It's probably one that's due. The management does not disagree that there's one that's due. We usually have to have a third party do it, so there's a arm's length analysis done. And I'll recommend that to the Public Health Unit. In fact, he's sitting over right there shaking his head. So,
I think even if we can do them incrementally, like you said,
Yeah.
by department, it's not going to be.
Yeah,
such
the
a
problem
big-
the problem with doing something like that is that it's the cost of having it done is fairly expensive. It's cost 30-40 grand to do something like that because they're going out and looking at various counties everywhere, so to see if we're in line. And then when you get done, when the commission sees that, oh my God, you want to kick up this fee? Really? That's in my district. So it's there's a little bit pull and tug there. So.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Thank you. Overtime, page 7 of the report. The budget issue in fiscal year 2017 overtime costs countywide were $30.2 million. $19.1 million, or 63% of this, was related to the sheriff's office. Currently, the sheriff has about 165 vacancies. In addition, for the last 3 fiscal years, actual expenditures for overtime in the sheriff's office has exceeded the budget significantly. In fiscal year 2018, for example, the actual expenditures for overtime were $19.1 million, or $11.9 million more than was budgeted.
So if I may respond to that, the only thing that I would disagree with Mike is that the current vacancy factor in the sheriff's department is not 165. It's 228. That's a result of the MIDC costs coming on board. MIDC is a program for the indigent attorneys. Requires the sheriff to secure prisoners as they go see their attorneys and things like that. But that's really being negotiated down, so the sheriff may end up losing 15 positions because they're not needed to do this kind of security work. But we do have an issue in overtime, primarily in the sheriff's department, followed by the road warriors that are out filling potholes and things like that.
Commissioner Marecki?
And I know this comes up every year. If we increase the pay of the sheriff, this would maybe help hiring more people and eliminating the massive overtime, But I don't know if that really is true, if that would really happen.
The pay is negotiated between the union and the office of the CEO. I do know that POHAM just received, what did he say, 3%? 3% increase for a 1-year extension for POHAM right now. And the sheriff's 3317 group, which is the command group, is in Act 312 right now. I can't really discuss those negotiations, if you will. But again, a lot of this is negotiated. So.
Okay. All right, thanks. We can talk about that later.
And to add to that point too, increasing the pay of the deputies, well, it's well-deserved. If we increase the pay but don't decrease our level of staffing, all we've done is increase the overtime even more.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, I guess that was my question. Would offering more money really decrease the numbers of vacancies? I guess
the numbers of vacancies is a result of the market. So
yeah.
All right. So what's happening is that we've increased the salaries over the last couple of years, but so is everybody else. So you're competing against DPD across the street. You're competing against Oakland County. You're competing against the locals, and you're competing against MSP.
So it's not just a salary issue.
It's not just a salary issue because DPD and MSP don't pay Social Security. We do. So if you add that salary, quote salary, into the mix, that increases our salary by $2,000. That MSP's got it built into their salary because they don't pay Social Security.
All right, thank you.
Continue, please.
Thank you. Next item is funding of the retirement system, pages 8 and 9 of the report. The funded ratios for fiscal years 2015, 16, 17, and 18 were 54%, 54%, 55%, and 62% respectively. For fiscal year 2020, the minimum contribution per the actuary is approximately $52.3 million. The actuarial report also lists a potential cash flow problem for Wakers. Assets in the plan are not sufficient to cover current retirees' liabilities, and the ratio of assets market value to retiree benefit payroll is 6.2, which means that approximately 6 years of retiree benefit payments can be paid from the current assets. With the 62% funding ratio, however, the county is in compliance with Act 202 of 2017, in other words, no state interference. Net decrease in the annual pension was about 146 pensions, or just over $2.5 million. Commission leadership should ensure that the system remains funded above the 60% in order to be in compliance with the Public Act, and request management's plan to increase the funding level while still providing essential county services, including addressing the staffing shortfalls.
Could we put a pin for a minute? I'm sorry, I bypassed. Commissioner McCormick had a question on the last page.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The question goes to the staffing and any programs related to increasing the staffing. Has there been any type of referral incentives for employees to recruit their family and friends to any other positions? Do you know?
We do have another slide later on that talks about succession planning and retention of employees, but that part, we're not aware of any programs other than recruitment.
Okay.
And I'm not aware of any, Commissioner.
Okay. I was just going to suggest that that might be a way to get employees through
And
an
again,
incentive
this is
plan.
a perfect question to ask the HR director, who just left. He knew you were going to ask a question, so he
Right, okay.
Alrighty.
That was it, thank you.
Returning to,
Next item is the Department of Information and Technology Telecommunications Services. Our office conducted a performance audit of the Office of the Wayne County Department of Information Technology. This report contained, among other items, the following issues that will have a budgetary impact on county operations. First one is non-existent controls over cellular devices. Our office identified approximately 200 cellular devices that were ordered by a DOIT employee, but not in the possession of county employees. Estimated value of these devices was approximately $100,000. Next item is lack of monitoring of cellular phone usage. Did not appear that management had a process to review the detailed telephone billings to determine if airtime charges or overages, were reasonable. Also, there were approximately 145 cell phones assigned to county employees that exceeded their allotted plan minutes in the amount of 441,073 minutes.
Minutes or dollars?
If I could just add to these
go ahead.
two items before Mike goes on to the other bullets. This engagement that we did was back in 2016. We weren't able to issue the report until 2018 because of the pending litigation regarding over the report. But we think these are important issues that we identified at that time because these are ways that they may be small amounts, but we can reduce our county budget and expenditures through some of these recommendations. And let me also add to this, while the allotted plan minutes were over 441,000 minutes, the county as a whole did not go over their entire budget allotment of minutes because there's a set pool that everybody shares. But it may, by controlling the employees that were going over their minutes that may not have been county-related calls, could reduce the amount of minutes that the county actually needs.
It's about $88,000 if it's 20 cents per minute.
Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you.
Is there a typo in your report that says?
Is there a policy that we have in place at all that guides, who gets a phone, that maybe the manager receives the bill, or is there some process or?
Yeah, at the time when we did this engagement, there was literally very limited controls over the cellular phones. The one individual that was ordering the phones also received the phones, also approved the phone bills. So since our report, and I believe we've done a corrective action plan, is they have instituted new controls in place to kind of mitigate some of the risk that was identified during this engagement.
Okay, and what's that? Is there a policy that
Yes,
maybe?
they have new policies in place. They have separate individuals reviewing the cell phone bills, or different individuals ordering rather than same person, a different person is receiving the bill. So there's new controls in place. So hopefully they are working to minimize that.
Can we get the policy? Because I don't have the policy, and I might
We can get
myself
with DOT.
be going over the minutes if I don't know what that, policy is, and or my employees or contractor. So.
And also, too, the commission has a different cellular plan than the rest of the county.
Okay, but what I'm alluding to is that if there is a policy out there anywhere, where I think we all should know what
it
that
is.
policy might be, so.
We'll look at getting that.
Okay, thank you.
Cynthia would know about, yeah, I'm looking at you if you wanted to chime in. About the commissions, that is.
Right. So with regards to the commission, I'm not aware that the commission has adopted any such policy. So though there may be one for a specific department or elected official, that doesn't mean that it's applicable to the commission. So it's something that we would have to look at and evaluate. But at this point in time, I'm not familiar with this issue, but I'm not aware of something that applies to the commission.
If I might add, I've been recording what the cellular cost is for commission and commission staff for a long time, and I've never seen where we've been charged in excess of what our base cost is.
Okay. Okay.
And there is a typo in the slide. Actually, it should be $41,000 is what the amount equated to.
Oh, that's a whole different story. I thought it was.
No, it's $41,000.
She caught that, by the way. It wasn't good.
Good catch. The next issue basically was just discussed in the previous bullet point, and that's the possible underutilization of cell phones. As previously mentioned, county employees are assigned cellular phone plans where the minutes are pooled based on various plan minutes. We conducted a utilization analysis of the number of actual plan minutes used by each employee according to the respective plan in order to determine whether the plan was being properly utilized. 446 employees had county cell phones. Based on our test of these 446 employees, we determined that 118 employees, or 27% of the population, either used no minutes at all or less than 10% of their allotted plan minutes monthly. So by not performing a periodic review of the cell phone usage, including an analysis of plan minute overages to determine whether it is cost effective to not provide cell phones to employees who are underutilizing their plans, could result in the county paying for plans that are not being used. In total, we estimated that the cost savings on an annual basis could be as much as about $43,100. And lastly, possible savings through increased use of Bring Your Own Device. Again, based on our analysis, the county could save as much as $36,000 annually by having employees use their own device rather than supplying them with a county cell phone.
And we found this is becoming pretty popular out in other organizations, that individuals do have their own cell phones. So somebody may not want to have two cell phones. So there's been some cases too where some county or cities, counties, they give a stipend to an individual for using their own phone. We're not saying to go the stipend way, but there are ways that we may not need so many county cell phones.
I just have a comment on that. I wonder, like with FOIA things down the road, if that would, mixing your personal with your, that's just a thought. I don't know what.
I don't know the answer to that. So
Yeah.
maybe Lawyer Daggett over there does.
Through the chairs, my understanding that using your personal cell phone won't necessarily protect you from disclosure if you're conducting county business, if that's what you're referring to.
I am, yeah.
Yes, so if you're conducting county business, I believe there's a somewhat recent court case that indicates that you're still subject to that. That would go for your personal email as well, potentially.
Thank you.
And it's all very fact specific, but.
Okay, thank you.
Next issue, DPS permits. Again, we conducted a performance audit of the Department of Public Services Engineering Division Permits Office. This report contained, among other items, the following issue that has a budgetary impact on county operations. Failure to reconcile outstanding permit bond deposits. This office utilizes an account entitled Deposit, Bid Performance, and Other, which is used to record bond deposits made by permit holders, as well as refunds of bond funds after a permit is completed and closed. As of September 30th, 2017, this account had a balance of about $11.4 million in it. This represents deposits that either, one, should have been refunded to the contractor or permit holder, two, a portion recorded as revenue to the county for services performed, or three, as a final resort, if the funds could not be returned to the contractors, should be escheated to the state of Michigan. In addition, the county has not made an effort to determine who the $11.4 million in deposits are owed to, or how much is owed to the county. Finally, after all efforts to return the deposits are exhausted, the county does not have a process in place to escheat these unclaimed funds to the state of Michigan.
If I could just add to this $11.4 million. At the time we were doing our engagement, we spoke with Department of Public Services, and they are in a process right now working with Corporation Counsel, because it may be that this $11.4 million does not go back to the contractor, does not get escheated to the state, but based on policies and procedures that they will put in place, the money could come back to the county. So they're working through it with Corporation Counsel. We just began our corrective action plan, so at that time we'll be able to find out what progress we've made towards this.
That'd be wonderful. Commissioner Baydun.
I just want to say one of my friends has $13,000 in that amount that he's been trying to get back for a year and a half. And now I'm getting involved, and we're trying to get the people in the right departments to get his money back, and we can't get anywhere. That's a little bit frustrating, so deduct $13,000 out of that.
Commissioner Anderson?
So I guess Kevin will have to find another vacation fund, right?
Yeah, I wish that was the case. I'd rather owe it to you than cheat you out of it.
Either way, you're not going to get it right.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead to the Wayne County Criminal Justice Center. During fiscal year 2018, the county and Rock Ventures negotiated a deal in which Rock agreed to build a new consolidated criminal justice center at I-75 in East Warren for $533 million by the spring or summer of 2022. Estimated total project cost to design and construct this center will be approximately $533.6 million, of which the county's cost will be a base contribution of $401.3 million, and the developer will pay approximately $132.3 million. The development agreement provides for shared cost savings if the project costs are less than $520 million. County's investment will be comprised of $315 million in new bond proceeds, $55 million in remaining bond proceeds from the unfinished jail project at Gratiot, and approximately $41 million in general fund dollars. Annual debt service on this new bond issuance is estimated at $14 to $19 million. Part of the construction involves a central utility plant. On July 3rd of this year, the county announced it's reached a tentative agreement with DTE Energy Services, which is a non-regulated subsidiary of DTE Energy, to construct and operate the central utility plant for the new criminal justice center. The deal estimates the cost of the plant to be between $32 million and $37.7 million. Under the tentative deal, the county will pay up to $35.2 million to construct the central utility plant, while Rock Development will contribute $2.5 million based on the gross maximum price of approximately $37.7 million. Cost of building the central utility plant is not included in the $533 million price tag, under which the county pays $380 million and Rock Development covers the remainder, including any construction overruns. Commission should request frequent updates from the administration regarding the status of the Criminal Justice Center, including the estimated costs and timeframes to complete the project.
ask a question?
Commissioner Marecki.
So, Mike, are you saying that since the county has agreed to pay the $380 million, and that's the $35 million is on top of it, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
But did we ever, this is a longer conversation, I'm sure, that we knew that from the beginning? I always thought we were just paying the 380, so you're just saying this is on top of it, you're giving us the facts.
That's correct.
Okay, I'm sure that's going to be another discussion. Thank you.
That's what the cow's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, sources and amounts of increased revenues or reduced expenditures.
Commissioner Anderson, I'm sorry.
Mike, I'm sorry, I should have stopped when you were on there. So if, just to be clear, if the cost of the cup is 35.2 rather than the 37.7, then we'll still pay the same amount, and Rock saves more money, correct? They're limited on how much they can spend, but
I believe they're limited to the 2.5.
right.
So-
But do they even have to pay that?
The first 2.5 comes from Rock.
Yeah.
Of the first 2.5, okay.
What if it costs $40 million?
Well, then we'd have a problem. They're the price tag, and again, this will come up at COW, but the price tag is not to exceed 37 point something, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, increased property tax revenues. For fiscal 2018, the property tax revenue budget increased by about $8.4 million due to higher than anticipated tax collections. Property tax revenue exceeded the final amended budget by $11.2 million. County's 2017 equalization report indicates that the state equalized value for Wayne County increased by about $1.8 billion, going from $44.9 billion to $46.7 billion, which is an increase of 4%. Total taxable value of the county serves as the basis for current and future tax levies. Total taxable value increased by $0.3 billion from $39.5 billion to $40.8 billion, which is an increase of 3.3%. Commissions request frequent updates from MMB regarding estimates of anticipated increases in the receipt of property tax revenues. Debt refinancing, I think, has been touched upon prior presentation. The county issued $315 million in new financing for the Criminal Justice Center. Interest rate is at 3.91% on these bonds. Given the very favorable interest rates the county was able to obtain the new financing under, studies should be conducted on the feasibility of refinancing any outstanding bond issues. For example, the 2010 Building Authority jail bonds have an outstanding balance as of September 30th, 2018 of about $184.5 million. Interest rates on these bonds range from 6.22% to 10%. Commission should request an analysis regarding the financial impact of refinancing outstanding bonds that carry interest rates in excess of the recently obtained 3.91%.
Commissioner Webb?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Where are we in that process?
Well, I think Matthew explained it.
He talked about it a little bit. Are you looking?
Waiting for the Arcadia contract to go through the commission before we can get started.
Oh,
Acacia, we provided that contract 30 to 45 days ago.
so you're hiring Acacia to do the analysis on
They
this?
are our new FA. They are replacing Hilltop. So we had an RFP
Okay.
for financial advisory services, and we provided a contract to change firms. We're changing from Hilltop to Acacia. Acacia was the winner of the RFP, and so once we have a valid contract, then I can engage them to start this process.
Okay, and you did say that in general, but I didn't know specifically if you had done anything with this, because this is something you guys have been talking about for quite some time, is, issuing or refinancing that debt. So, you're saying, I'm just wondering how much we're losing in the process. This wasn't something we could have done in-house, no?
To do the full analysis, I don't think we could have fully done it in-house because
Just on
it
this
requires the It requires somebody to price it out at the market, and we don't have a sales desk to sell bonds to the general public or to finance firms. So that's why we use an FA who goes out and talks to and finds out, is there a demand? Right now, there's very high demand.
Mhm.
So right now is a great time to sell bonds.
Mhm.
Interest rates are quite low.
Mhm.
They may get a little lower, but probably not dramatically. So now is exactly the right time to be going through this process. As soon as I have that contract with Acacia, they're going to come back and we're going to sit down and start going through the analysis process.
Okay. It just seems like with that, 6.2 to 10% interest, I don't know how long that this has been going on, but the longer we wait.
2010. They're
So-
2010 bonds.
I know, but I mean, the rates in the market being good and our all those other, there's a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
But for us to be in a place where we could reduce this rate significantly, because, time is huge money on this one. Okay, thanks. That's
So
it.
the 3.91% that Mike was talking about, that's a double A rate that the state has. We wouldn't qualify for a 3.91% rate right now. Our bond rating is below the state's. We don't have the kind of fund balance and taxing authority that they have, and the ability to generate new revenues and all these other kinds of things. So their rate, I believe, right now is double A, if I'm not mistaken.
So is it your
We-
plan to
we
do it
wouldn't
with them?
qualify. We don't qualify as a double A. We're a triple B plus.
So is it your plan to work with them to do that?
Only to the extent that we still have capacity on our there is some capacity left on distributable state aid that we could guarantee them with, but we needed that for the jail bonds. And so part of that, the 2018 jail bonds, we used distributable state aid as a guarantee to get the state rate, essentially. There's
we
an
may not be
intercept
able
in
to.
place. So I don't think we're going to get 3.91%. I think we'll get something a little higher than that.
Still will be
Four
better
and a
than
quarter
six.
to
Right?
4.5-ish. This will be better than what we're paying now. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm, thank you.
Next.
Next item is unfunded activities, deferred maintenance. In June of 2013, the construction of the Crash Avenue Jail was suspended. Likewise, maintenance on the existing jail facilities was also suspended. So until the Criminal Justice Center is anticipated to be completed in 2022, maintenance on the current jail facilities must occur. Commission should request an analysis regarding the anticipated maintenance costs for the current jail facilities until the new center is completed.
Mark that down.
Next, unfunded activities, compensation. Department of Human Resources ensures positions in the county government are filled by the most qualified, capable, and committed employees available. Part of this strategy is to provide compensation development. Commission should request an analysis from HR regarding the compensation plans for county employees that will allow the county to retain and attract new employees to fill vacancies. Next item, Guardian Building. Guardian Building had a net operating income of just over $487,000 for fiscal year 2017/18. This is compared to a net income of $18,463 for the prior fiscal year. In fiscal year 2016, tenant lease space was 43.26%. County was 44.05%. Vacant was 12.69%. 2017, total occupied space increased to 93.6%, which was a 6.3% increase. Vacant space decreased to 6.4%. Fiscal 2018, total occupied space increased to 93.78%, a 1.8% increase. Vacant space decreased to 6.2%. Our office acknowledges the administration's positive actions regarding potential consolidation of county departments into this building. In addition, the increase in the building's occupancy rate with the additional interest in renting public building space to outside private/corporate individuals has helped in the increase for revenue for the county. Commission should request periodic status updates on relocating county offices into the remaining space available in the Guardian Building, and also should request monthly operating reports on the Guardian Building and the First Street parking structure. Next item is implementation of the Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP system. Again, the Department of M&B requested commission approval of a professional services contract with Cherry Road Technologies, not to exceed $14 million, to configure, build, and implement Oracle's enterprise resource planning / human capital management / enterprise performance management cloud, or ERP solution, to meet the county's requirements in replacing obsolete systems. The Commission approved the contract June 6th of this year. M&B advised that this project will allow the county to migrate from aging hardware and software, namely older versions of Oracle, PeopleSoft, and J.D. Edwards, to the new ERP, financial, human resources, budgeting, and reporting systems. The county uses PeopleSoft to process HR transactions and payroll transactions, and J.D. Edwards to process financial transactions. Project implementation is estimated at 3 to 4 years. According to M&B management, the project was not evaluated for cost savings. Rather, the focus is on replacing the current system before it fails. The county doesn't have a backup plan when J.D. Edwards fails. Total project cost is estimated at approximately $30 million. Commission should request updates on the status of this ERP system implementation, including expected completion date and what plans are in effect if and when the J.D. Edwards systems crash. DOIT, fiscal year 2019-2020 tech refresh. Management of this department budgeted, or has $805,000 budgeted for the fiscal year 2019-20 tech refresh. DOIT is planning on ordering and deploying new computers within this fiscal year time frame. Given the risks identified in the telecommunications performance audit previously referenced, Commission should ask DOIT management what controls have been implemented to improve the monitoring of county assets. Succession planning, recruiting, staffing / open FTEs. According to personnel / human resources, they're developing succession planning as a part of their overall employee engagement transformation. Various elements of the engagement strategy must be in place before this planning can be implemented. Estimated completion date is the third quarter of this year. While steps are underway for succession planning, the county has difficulty hiring and retaining employees. The table pictured on the slide here shows budgeted versus actual FTEs for the past 3 fiscal years. Actual FTEs are as of July 17th, and again, you can see we have a budget of 39, fiscal 2018, budget of 3981, actual of 3358, difference, a shortfall of 623. We detailed the departments / elected officials who accounted for approximately 86% of the 623 net total vacancies. Circuit Courts 158, Sheriff was 165, HVCW 61, DPS 127, M&B 28, total 539. Personnel Human Resources is implementing strategies to address filling these vacant positions. Concerns is losing institutional knowledge through the attrition of employees. This could pose a serious concern regarding adequately providing county services as well as fulfilling departmental responsibilities. So the county's
Go ahead. I just have a question when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The county's hiring and retention of employees is paramount to any plan for succession planning. Key positions that may not be filled timely, which could jeopardize a department or division from achieving its business objectives and delivering mandated services timely. Commission leadership should request periodic updates from personnel on the progress of its hiring initiatives and retention policies.
Commissioner Marecki?
I just have, I don't know, a question and a comment. At what point do we start adjusting these numbers are these numbers from 10 years ago, 7 years ago? When do we start adjusting these in each department where maybe we don't need 628 employees? We keep focusing on we're missing these many people, but are they really 600 more people really needed?
If you, well, I'm the budget guy, so I'm probably not the best person to ask.
No, it's just it's a comment too that
the sheriff's positions of 165. Right. I've already mentioned that it's actually somewhere around 228 or something like that. Do we need 100? Do we need that? Yeah, we need those guys. Right now they are running 200 and somewhere around 220 FTEs in overtime.
Right.
So one quarter to one third of their staff, they're staffing on overtime. So yeah, they need it. Once we get the new jail, maybe not so much, but in the short term, yeah, we need it. For the circuit court, the Third Circuit Court's an animal to themselves. They do their own hiring, they do their own firing. I can't even talk to that. DPS, 127, those are road warriors. Those are the guys that are filling the potholes and fixing the trucks and things like that. And, it depends on how many potholes you want fixed in your district, So for M&B, I think Matthew and I both agree that, yeah, we need those people. Because right now that there's people that are management is doing what the staff should be doing right now. So.
All right, yeah, if there's a legitimate, but I know sometimes this goes on for years, the same numbers are shown, and it's just a comment. Thank you.
And tomorrow, if you need more in depth, tomorrow they are making the same presentation in audit. So, you still want to?
Yeah, I just have one
we're
real
losing
quick question.
numbers. Okay.
Thank you. The difference where you showed the difference here, there's the budgeted amount of employees, the actual amount of employees, and the difference. What's done if it's budgeted? If that's money to pay those employees as part of the budget, and we don't hire the employees, where does that money go? Back into the district? Back into the department?
So it all depends. The sheriff officers, as Mike alluded to when he talked about overtime, that the budget for overtime is significantly less than the actual for overtime. Basically, it's being covered by regular salaries. Do we bother doing a budget adjustment? Not usually. I think everyone here at the committee knows that the sheriff, for example, has to post 591 positions, I believe, in the jails. They're required to by the consent order. I think it's around 590. And they're going to post those positions whether they're on overtime or not. So
they just pay overtime with the money that they're not spending on employees, basically.
Basically, they're spending money on overtime. So you go to different divisions. Like I said, the courts are an animal to themselves. M&B, like I said, we have 28 open positions. It ends up being management doing the work.
Has anybody done the feasibility study to see if you could hire more people with the 19 million you're spending in overtime and where it makes sense?
Again, the overtime is being
in the sheriff's department.
In the sheriff's department, overtime is around $42,000 an FTE, $43,000 an FTE. Officers come in off the street at 34 and change. And then they're working overtime as soon as they get in the door.
I was just informed that we're running into overtime and into the health committee.
I'm more than willing to leave.
Way over. So
okay, that's all I need to know.
It's very important that we finish this. But
I just had a quick question. It goes back to the Guardian building. The space that is 43.26% is the tenant lease, and then county has 44%. Do we know how much that 44% saves us or cost us, however you want to look at it?
The budget for the Guardian building per employee, per square foot is, I want to say, $16.25 or thereabouts. So depending on how much what's your square footprint, that's how much is being charged. The county only pays for debt service. So the electricity, the repairs, and everything else is basically funded through the management company. So the only thing the county pays is debt service on the bonds.
So I just want to, I guess, if we can find out what it would cost the county to rent the space if we were renting it.
Excuse me 1 second, Felicia. Did you want to chime in?
No, I know you saw the expression on my face, and everyone knows my thoughts about the Guardian building, and I know you're running overtime. So
That's okay.
I'm just.
We want to hear from you.
I'm gonna reserve them for now with
We've heard
regards
it.
to the. I know you know.
Oh, is it?
We're going to discuss it in more in
Detail?
depth
Okay.
when the building comes to us.
Okay. All right.
That concludes our presentation.
Like I indicated, we're also going to make a more in-depth presentation tomorrow to the audit committee, and I'm also available for any commissioner that wants to sit down with additional questions. Just please give me a call.
In the meantime, I need to reiterate, if you have any questions that you need answered, if we're running short of time, we want to answer them, so please forward them to me and or staff, so we can ask the departments in advance of them coming to us as while it's fresh in your mind. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the good work. Next item, Commissioner Anderson? Okay.
Next item F, such other matters as may properly be submitted before the committee.
None?
Item G, public comments.
Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Next item.
Item H, adjournment.
So moved.
So moved, supported, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. It's so much information. It's good to hear it a couple of times. That's why I always come to this meeting. So like I can digest what you said today, I can think about my
That's
questions
fine,
tomorrow.
because
I'll send it to you today.
Yeah, because I want to know, because I want to order.
So, but I mean, you know,
some
that
things
40,000
before
here
the
and 100,000 there, that would get me that one
Yeah.
person I need in veterans.
Of course.
I'm not going to be here.
You know what I mean?
We're going to be going through
But I'll try and
two.
get you what I can tomorrow.
So-
and then